Hello, welcome to our Ability Skills Knowledge Foundation. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining and stay with us till the end. Once again, I am Arshia Kainat, host and CEO and Management Controller in Ability Skills Knowledge Foundation. Firstly, I want to say about today's free webinar. Today's webinar is workable for those who lose their confidence, did not trust, and have suspect on oneself. I hope today's webinar will be effective who are struggling with own personality. Every day some new participant joined with us, so I have to give little concept about ability skills knowledge foundation. What is Ask Foundation? Ask Foundation stands for Ability Skills Knowledge Foundation. It is an online platform which aims to enhance the skills of the youth living across the world. It promotes the talent of the humans. Its origin in Pakistan. It is founded by Dr. Aksar Rubani and Mr. Zain Khan as a vice president. Motto of Ask Foundation: creating new leaders by nurturing and promoting the talent of common people is the main purpose of Ask Foundation. Its slogan is sometimes choosing a different path from others does not mean isolating yourself, it means you know who are you. I am warmly welcoming in you all. Today we are representing the webinar on extensive reading with speaker Ronald S. Lambda. So let's start our program. Please give a warm welcome to Ronald S. Lambda. Hello, sir.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Kainat.
Thank you.
All right. So, I will now share my presentation. Okay, so thank you so much. I am Mr. Ronald S. Lamata, a licensed professional teacher from the Philippines. I'm also a learner, educator, and of course, your presenter for this evening or morning for the rest of the world. Next slide, please. All right. So, extensive reading. So before we go to what is extensive reading, okay. First things first, I wanted to give you a coffee for you to be able to stay awake and listen to the whole webinar. So coffee represents to letter C, consider God's new mercies and compassion. O, offer thanks to him. F is for forgive for your debtors, then ask God to forgive your debts. F is for follow peace. E is to exhale the struggles of yesterday. And of course, another E for encourage yourself. So that is coffee. And I'm going to offer it to you. And please zip your coffee as you listen to this extensive webinar presentation or extensive reading topic. Okay, next slide, please. All right, extensive reading. So extensive reading fits into the meaning focused point, okay, or the uh, meaning focused input. And fluency development stands of a course depending on the level of the books that the learners read. Okay, so when the book contain only a few unknown vocabulary and grammar items, extensive reading provides the condition for meaning focused input. Okay, so that is focused meaning input. Now, how about fluency development? Where the books are very easy ones with virtually no unknown items, extensive reading provides the condition for fluency development. So once again, where the books are very easy ones, okay? Very easy with virtually no unknown items, extensive reading provides the conditions for fluency development. So there you are, you're going to focus on the fluency development when the book is very easy. Okay, so this chapter examines the research on grade readers. So we are going to focus on the grade readers because, as we say, knowledge and of course the reading fluency should start or the foundation should start in the elementary level. Okay, it should not start on the high school or the college, but we should focus more with our learners during their uh, first step of education. All right, so elementary or sometimes with the preschool. Okay, next slide, please. Now, reading is a source of learning and a source of enjoyment. However, because of the nature of reading and learning from reading, once again, nature of reading and learning from reading, a reading development program will benefit from careful planning and monitoring. There are two major language based reasons for this. First things first, first, reading requires considerable knowledge and skill. And then the second thing, learning through extensive reading is largely incidental reading or incidental learning rather. So what do we mean by these two? Okay. So first, reading requires considerable knowledge and skill. This knowledge includes recognizing the letters and words of the language, having a large vocabulary and substantial grammatical and textual knowledge. Now, being able to bring knowledge of the world to the reading task and developing a degree of fluency with the reading skill. Okay, so that is reading requiring considerable knowledge and skill. And we do believe, ladies and gentlemen, that it is very important that we need to have prior knowledge and skill before we read something, right? Secondly, learning through extensive reading is largely incidental learning. That is, the learner's attention is focused on the story, not on items to learn. So, once again, you are focusing on the story, meaning to say the whole context, the whole point, not just on a certain items to learn. As a result, learning gains tend to be fragile, and thus it is important to have quantity of input with substantial opportunities for vocabulary repetition. So there you go. Learning through extensive reading is largely incidental learning. That is, if the attention is focused on the story, not on the items to learn. All right. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So once again, this chapter, why do I keep on saying this chapter? Because actually the topics here came from the book that I have said a while ago. So don't worry because resources will be shared to you later on. This chapter is organized around a set of guidelines for planning a program. Okay. So we have programs in extensive learning. And if you want to have this kind of programs for extensive learning, so you can follow these guidelines. First things first, we need to understand the goals and limitations of extensive reading. Okay? So, extensive reading is a form of learning from meaning focused point. Oh, sorry. Please go back. Miss Arsha. Yes, please go back. Go back one slide. Yes, thank you so much. So, extensive reading is a form of, oops, forward. There you go. All right. So extensive reading is a form of learning from meaning focused point. All right. So during extensive reading, learners should be interested in what they are reading and should be reading with their attention on the meaning of the text. Okay. So rather than on learning the language features on the text. So there is now plenty of evidence, according to Ellie of 1991, that reading can result in a variety of substantial proficiency gains. However, it is very important to note that these gains require considerable time and effort. So extensive reading, ladies and gentlemen, can occur within class time or outside class time. That is according to, again, to Ellie and Mangubay of 1981. In their very useful survey of extensive reading, they M. Bamford of 1998 characterized extensive reading as involving a large quantity of varied, self-selected, enjoyable reading at a reasonably fluent speed. All right. So, meaning to say, if you try to do this extensive reading, first things first, the learner should be enjoying what he or she might be reading. Okay. So, it's not just actually giving something for them to read, but we should understand that we should also learn how to see the learners from their standpoint, meaning to say we should also understand that when they learn or as they learn, they are also enjoying, so that it will be easy for them to understand and comprehend what they are trying to read. Okay, now in their classic study of extensive reading, according also again to Ellie and Mangubay, they had 8 to 10-year-old learners reading in class time for no more than 30 minutes per day. So each school day for almost 8 months. So once again, 30 minutes per day for 8 months. The results were remarkable, with learners making the equivalent of 15 months gain in 8 months. So meaning to say the learning the knowledge rather that they might able to get within the 15 months, they were able to get it with a span of 8 months only. However, the time involved with was substantial but not beyond the means of an English as a foreign language situation. Okay, so next slide please. Miss Arsha, yes, thank you. So find your another thing, another guide is you need to find your learners' present vocabulary level. Actually, I always do this with my students, even in college. Extensive reading can only occur if 95 to 98% of the running words in a text are already familiar to the learner or are no burden to the learner. All right. So once again, they should be able to, just like what I said a while ago, it should be that they are already well versed with the vocabulary. So, meaning to say 95 to 98%, so that they will be enjoying what they are learning. Okay? Now, the clear message from this is that for learners of English to do extensive reading, it is essential that they read graded readers that have been specially prepared for learners of English. So later on, there will be a website that I'm going to show you or I'm going to share, wherein you can get lots of reading materials for free. Okay? Now, it is only by reading such text that learners can have the density of known words that is essential for extensive reading. Graded readers typically cover a range of levels beginning at around 300 to 500 words and going to around 2,000 to 2,500 words. Okay? So that is for the graded readers. So once again, levels beginning at around 300 to 500 words and going to 2,000 to 2,500 words. So it is very important that most especially here in the Philippines, we need to look over our young ones or our students at the elementary or the grade school, because um, based on statistics also and researchers, we are lagging behind, okay, in terms of English comprehension. Now, next slide please. Okay, so another guide also is to provide plenty of interesting and appropriate reading texts. Hill in Day and Bamford of 1998 provides a very this is already the link, provides a very useful list of what he considers to be the best graded readers, and this is a very valuable starting point in building a collection of graded readers, as there is no recent report of what learners enjoy most. It is worth collecting data on this. So the Extensive Reading Foundation website is also an excellent source of award-winning graded reader titles. If an extensive reading program is to be successful, ladies and gentlemen, it must provide books that learners are interested in reading or that will develop their interest in reading. Okay, so teachers' judgments of books are likely to be different from the learners. So judgments of books and learners, and then judgments should get priority. Okay, or what I mean is learners' judgments. Okay, should get priority. So we might say that this is the best book for them, but of course, the learners have also their own judgments as to what is best for them or what is enjoyable for them. So accordingly, the learner's judgment should get the priority. Okay, so we always remember that one. Next slide, please. Set, encourage, and monitor large quantities of extensive reading. Now, research on the vocabulary covered by different numbers of graded readers suggests that learners need to read many books in order to gain control of the high frequency words of English, preferably at the rate of a graded reader every 1 or 2 weeks. Now, in an extensive reading program, reading should be the main activity and other activities should occupy only a very small portion of the time so that time is not taken away from reading. So you see, all of the activities are very much likely to be into the reading activity. Okay, so lesser what do you call this? Lesser time for other activities not related to reading. For this reason, most extensive reading programs do not require learners to do elaborate comprehension tests or exercises on the books they read. Now, generally, learners are simply required to fill out a short record from indicating the name of the book they have just read, its level, the date, how long it took to read, and a brief comment on the quality of the book. So, was it a good story? Would you recommend it to others? Something like that. Okay. And then 12 or more of these short report forms can be printed on a piece of A4 paper because we need to, of course, we need to monitor their progress. Okay, allowing the learner and teachers to see at a glance how much has been read over what period of time. Okay, next slide, please. Support and supplement extensive reading with language focused learning and fluency development. All right. Now, one of the most useful ways in which the course can support extensive reading is by providing training in reading faster. Okay. Of course, we need to do supplemental readings. Speed reading program involves the learners reading text that are well within their language knowledge. That is, they contain no unknown vocabulary or grammatical features. A good reading speed is around 250 words per minute. Most learners without training read at less than 100 words per minute. So for learners who does not have any training, less than 100 words per minute. But if you have good reading speed, you will have 250 words per minute. Okay. One way an extensive reading program can contribute to proficiency development is through vocabulary growth. Okay. Now, this can be encouraged in extensive reading by making the vocabulary learning more deliberate and less incidental. Care needs to be taken, however, that this vocabulary learning goal does not overshadow reading for pleasure. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Help learners move systematically through the graded reader levels. Now, Nation and Wang, in a detailed study of 42 graded readers in the Oxford Bookworm series, reached the following conclusions considering only the aim of vocabulary learning. Next slide, please. Okay, so number one, learners should read at least one graded reader every week, no matter what level they are reading. At this rate, of reading allows unknown vocabulary to be repeated before immediately previous occurrence is forgotten. Okay. So number two, learners should read at least 5 books at a level. So say let's say level two before moving to books at the next level, which is level three. And this number of books provides a chance for most of the vocabulary introduced at the level to occur. And number three, learners should read more books at the later levels than the earlier. This is because the vocabulary of the earlier levels occur very frequently in the books at the later levels. Books at the later levels thus provide good conditions for learning all the vocabulary of the graded reader series. Okay, next slide, please. Now, other ways of supporting extensive reading. So, not all text for extensive reading needs to be simplified text, as there are other ways of helping with the vocabulary load of extensive reading. So, this includes glossing, computer assisted reading, and elaborating. So, we'll deal with them one by one, okay, on the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So glossing. Glossing involves providing the meaning of word in language, first language, or in a simple second language definition in the margin next to the line containing an unknown word. Okay. Now we also have computer assisted reading. One of the best computer assisted reading programs can be found on Tom Cobb's website www.lextutor.ca and look under the heading Read with Resources. Now, the learner pastes in a text, clicks Build, and then starts reading. Now, by clicking once on a word, a spoken form of the word can be heard. By clicking twice, several concordance examples appear. Now, this additional context can help with guessing the word's meaning from context clues. And of course, elaboration. Elaboration involves the rewriting of text, but it involves adding to original text rather than removing or replacing what is there. The unknown words in the text are, in effect, glossed in the text itself. Okay? So some glossaries come at the end of the text, but learners prefer glosses near the unknown word, probably because these do not disrupt reading too much. In Japan, ladies and gentlemen, some English texts are printed with translations in a lighter type above the low frequency word in the text. So glosses may contribute to vocabulary learning and may improve comprehension of the text. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So, the extensive reading program. So, this discussion of guidelines for an extensive reading program has focused mainly on learning conditions and research and has not given attention to more practical factors such as how to organize and manage a library of graded readers, how to obtain graded readers, and how many are needed to set up. So these issues are well covered in Day and Bamford of 1998. So the main purpose of this chapter is to convince teachers to sorry, excuse me. This is to convince teachers that it is worthwhile setting up an extensive reading program, making it a substantial obligatory part of a course, and persisting with it an organized way. So the results of such programs are very impressive if we are going to more or less follow or have this extensive reading program. Next slide, please. Miss Arsha, next slide. All right, thank you. Now, after having the extensive reading, we also need to assess, right? So let's talk about a little bit of assessment. So Practical applications, use of assessment to find out how well students are reading and also how to help them read better. Choose a method of assessment appropriate for the level and type of student. Higher order questions take the form of how and why rather than what. And when choosing the material for assessing non native speakers, be mindful of words and concepts that might be unfamiliar. So, there are two forms of reading assessment. The first is to find out how well children are reading in order to help them improve. So that is diagnosis. So diagnostic assessment is about giving feedback and assistance to learners. The second is to measure how much progress has been made. Both forms of assessment are needed to for effective reading instruction. Okay, so in beginning reading, sorry, assessment is normally done by listening to students reading aloud. Okay? So teachers assess word recognition and fluency in this way. Beyond this stage, assessment should focus primarily on text comprehension. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right. Assessment to find out how well children are reading in order to help them improve. So that is diagnosis. To measure how progress has been made. And of course, in beginning reading, assessment is normally done by listening to students reading aloud. Okay. So that is the summary of what I've said a while ago. Next, please. All right. So assessment. Text comprehension is usually assessed through questions. Methods of assessment vary with the types of responses students make to the questions, and the students' responses can be spoken or written. Now, okay, text comprehension is usually assessed through questions. Okay, questions should focus on main ideas and viewpoints, not minor details. So once again, main ideas and viewpoints and not on the minor details. These are called higher order questions. Methods of assessment vary with the types of responses students make the questions, okay? So the students' responses can be spoken or written. Now, written responses can be in the form of a multiple choice response, short answers, or extended pieces of writing. So, materials used for assessing reading should ideally be authentic, and they should reflect the type of reading normally encountered in the daily life. So, that is how we do the assessment for the extensive reading. Okay? Next slide, please. Oh, oh, okay. That's the end. And that ends my presentation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. I will now be turning this over to the host, ma'am. Miss Arsha.
That's amazing. Now, if you have any question regarding about this topic, then please type your question on comment section. Members, if you have any question, then please write your question on comment section. Members, if you have any question regarding about this topic, then please write your question on comment section.
All right. Thank you so much for this question. So the question is, what are the challenges for the extensive reading? So actually, one main challenge that I can see in extensive reading is that when the learner is very reluctant to read, okay, because first things first, we need to challenge our readers for to read, okay, because if they are not going to be participative, or if they're not going to give their participation in the program, so we will have a difficulty in terms of making them improve themselves in terms of learning. So first things first that we really need to do is for us to be able to allow them to join the program, for them to be able to make them feel that they are part of the program, and make them feel that we are not here to judge them, to judge how they read, to judge how they speak, to judge how they understand this kind of things. But we need to allow ourselves to be a facilitator of the learning. So we always need to put in a way that we as teachers should be the ones who are encouraging them to learn, because the problem with the generations right now is some of them are very reluctant in terms of the reading process or the reading program, because they are afraid to speak, most especially if they are just learning to speak the language, or learning uh to be skillful in the second language, in this case the language of English. Other things are trouble sounding out words and recognizing words out of context, meaning to say having a little bit of the vocabulary. Okay, because once again, as what we have said a while ago, we really need to understand. The learners should have most likely 95 to 98% uh, they are already aware of the vocabularies that are inside of the book. So we as teachers, or we as the ones giving or training our young ones to do extensive reading, when you give extensive reading books, or when you want to practice extensive reading, you need to give them books wherein they are already aware of all the words. So most likely they are already aware of the 95 to 98% of the words that is inside the book, for them to be able to enjoy reading. So they will not be reluctant in terms of reading, okay? Also, they have when they have confusions between letters and sounds, because when you try to learn the second language, or when you try English as a second language or a foreign language, so we sometimes we confuse letters and the sounds they represent. And also slow oral reading rate. That is why we need to practice more for us to be able to have a bit of speed in terms of reading. Of course, reading without expression, because since we are learners, for our learners of ESL, or English as second language or as foreign language, sometimes they do not have this expression, the rising or the falling of the tone, and of course ignoring punctuation while reading. Okay, so when we do this kind of things, when we know these kinds of troubles, we will be able to deal and help the learners or the readers, for them not to be reluctant in participation in the extensive reading program. Okay, so I hope I have answered your question. Non-native speakers feel problems uh, while reading. So what kind of steps should be taken in pre-basics steps? So just like what I've said, sir, a while ago, first things first, we need to identify the challenges that they are having. So what challenges that actually I have mentioned it a while ago, the challenges that they had, most especially for the second for the learners of the second English as a second language, because first things first, before we will be able to do the extensive reading, we must have already the what do you call this, the idea of English, of the English language. So like what I've said a while ago, the difficulties that some are having in terms of reading, trouble sounding out words and recognizing words out of context, sometimes the confusion between letters and the sounds they represent in English, and of course the slow and oral reading rate, reading without expression, ignoring punctuation while reading. Here in the Philippines, we are having the same problem. All right, we are having the same problem, just like the problems all over the world. If your if you are if English is not your mother tongue, so what we need to do really is, first things first, we really need to identify and decode the problems so that we will be able to take also the necessary actions to make. So that is actually the very basic step that we need to do. First, we need to identify the problem before doing anything, because we might and then also, when we are going to handle classes, we need to identify them one by one, because the problem of a certain student is not equal with the problem, is not equal or not the same with the problem of another student. I hope I answered that question, sir. Okay. Why extensive reading should be started by listening? The very obvious what do you call this? The very obvious answer to that one is because how are they going to learn how to read that one aloud if they do not even know the right pronunciation, or the right or the right pronunciation, the proper way of how to say it? Because just like the question a while ago, ma'am, with the difficulties, okay, so one of the difficulties is trouble sounding out of words and recognizing words out of context, or the confusion between letters and sounds they represent, slow oral reading rate, reading without expression, ignoring punctuation reading while reading, is because they are easily going to learn if they will be able to listen to the words first, or how it is being pronounced first. So extensive reading must be started by listening. It's because just like when we are trying to learn English during our grade school or our preschool, we started first, or even when we are teaching our child how to speak, first things first, we do speak the word, and then they try to copy. Okay, so in extensive reading, just like what I said a while ago, we need to have the ones or the students that who is going to participate in the extensive reading program must already have 95% to 98% of the what do you call this, familiarity of the words that are going to be used in the book. Okay, so meaning to say, we should not, if we are going to have an extensive reading program, we should not give them books that are not really, or there are very much of the unfamiliar words. That is why, because if that will be the case, first things first that we need to do is we really need to read the book for them to be able also to comprehend with the proper pronunciation. But if that will be the thing, that is not extensive reading anymore, because once again, extensive reading is focusing on the context and not focusing on the grammar and on the words itself. So it it is very important for us to do first the teaching of the words, of the vocabulary, for them to enjoy extensive reading, or to enjoy reading extensively. Thank you for that question, ma'am. Okay. Mental health support, thank you for this question. Actually, this is a very broad answer. Yes, I have a question regarding the techniques. Can you please explore how to implement it in daily life? Hmm. Actually, what we can do is to really guide them. All right. If we are talking of a one-on-one, so just like what I have read a while ago, or what I have shared to you a while ago, what we need to do first is, first things first is of course to assess, and then another thing is to know their ability already in reading, for us to be able to give them the right books to uh, for for us to give the right books for the continuous increase in the levels of the reading. Because like what we said, when they enjoy reading, they are also learning, learning new words, learning new vocabulary, sorry, and of course, the whole context as well. So, in terms of the techniques, can you please explore how to implement it in daily life? Actually, if we are just talking of a certain individual, or a one-on-one, so we really need to, first things first is assess, and then yeah, focus on the certain student, and with the guidelines that I have given a while ago, I think we could just follow the guidelines, and then let's see how is this going to work. Most especially, we need to give also the assessment after the implementation of the guidelines. Okay, I hope that answered the question. Well, anyway, the resources will be shared to you later on by the host. So I hope you followed also the instructions. Basic steps which are required for extensive reading. Basic steps. I think this is similar to the question of the previous. So the basic steps, first things first, um, first things first, just like what I said a while ago, when we are going to have a guideline for a planning program, first we need to understand the goals and limitations of extensive reading, because for every different country, even us here in the Philippines, even though we have one nationality, but we have different difficulties. Like for the our Muslim brothers, they also have brothers and sisters. They also have different difficulties in terms of extensive reading on the second language, learning of the second language, the Tagalog tribes, also the Visayan, the Chavacano. So we have different goals and limitations in terms of the extensive reading. Another one is to find your learners present vocabulary. So I will just read the titles again. So because I already presented it a while ago, provide plenty of interesting and appropriate reading text, set, encourage, and monitor large quantities of extensive reading. Because if you're not going to monitor them, if you're not going to give large quantities also, so it might the reading program might not be successful also. Support and supplement extensive reading with language focused learning and development and fluency development. And of course, we need to help learners move systematically through the graded reader level. So we have this from level one. When they are okay with, they will now go to level two, and then they will now starting to level three, so on and so forth. If you have what do you call this? If you have something to share also, added answers, you can also share it here in the chat box here in YouTube, because I can also read your comments. Thank you so much also for your questions.
Now members, quiz time is start now. We are obligated to you for your meritorious presentation and giving us your precious time. This session will be effective for our audience because you shared your intelligible knowledge with us. Dear knowledge seekers, I would love to thank you all from my deep heart for attending today's session. Hopefully, you learned something new and you will implement in your life. Please spread the information with your beautiful friends. Knowledge seekers, you will get free certificate after 2 to 3 days. So please submit attendance form accurately and add your remarks related to this webinar in comment section or attendance form. All members will get certificate via Drive link and link will share in our official Ask Webinars WhatsApp group. We hope to see you all again next webinar. Thank you so much. Stay happy, stay safe.